from the Magic City of Birmingham, Alabama to North Carolina, back to South Alabama, chasing that checkered flag, and now with taking over the spot as best hair on this podcast, my brother, he's got you edged out, Blasey.
I totally agree. Absolutely. I'm kind of jealous sitting here.
It's my new buddy.
Beautiful lock of hair.
You know, and I meet people, most people I've ever brought on here as guests I've met in through music, and this is similar, but not. It was a whole different route, and we'll get into that later. But my new buddy and one of my favorite new friends I've met in the last, I don't know how long, Mr. Hut Stricklin. How are you, Hut?
Good, JR. How are you doing?
I just knew after we met, I said, I got to get Hut on the podcast, so thank you for joining us. You know, I know everyone's heard you on the Dale Jr. podcast, and that was an excellent podcast. I mean, that is a great podcast, and
it is good.
I still think you're the better of the eights out of that bunch. But
oh, yeah.
But so we won't go down that same road and make you relive your life story again. But and like you and I talked about, it's funny when you talk to people who do a lot of interviews. You really only get 5 or 6 answers out of them, no matter how you spin it. It all goes back to the same questions. You get the same answer.
Exactly right.
So we won't go into all that, but we'll give a brief one if you don't mind. Like I mentioned, you're from the Birmingham area originally. If you give us a little breakdown how a little boy that grew up in Birmingham and, you know, hardworking family, love race cars, end up living out his dream and becoming a professional NASCAR driver for years, and then end up probably living out some of your dreams you made along the way and going into being a crew chief and owning a shop and all that fun stuff you did later on.
Oh, yeah.
And then now ending up down here. Just give us the skinny if you don't mind.
Well, I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, like you said, and I grew up in Calera, Alabama. You know, spent a lot of time there, and then I guess in 1996, you know, Pam and I, you know, we've actually I'd been in cup racing since about '89, but wasn't really getting to see my family any or anything like that. So we moved to North Carolina so I could have more family time with them. And, you know, just that was in 96. And we lived in North Carolina until October 2021 when we moved to Orange Beach, Alabama. And, you know, we love being back to our roots. You know, Orange Beach is a great little town, and you know, great people, and you know, Gulf Shores area, you know, same way. And you know, we just you know, it's you know, my wife Pam and I just didn't really care for the snow too much. And you know, of course, when we moved down here, the kids were like, well, you know, I think you guys are eating crow now since
it's Snowmageddon.
Snowed a record snow here for
unbelievable.
You know,
well, that was you who brought it. We just figured out how we got 9 inches of snow first time in 300 years.
You know,
Hut moved home.
I didn't mean to. I can assure you, I do not like that stuff.
No, sir.
But
a little bit of drafting coming down, it just
yeah,
rip
man, I tell you, yeah, something happened. I don't know, but. You know, I'm definitely not a snowbird for sure. I don't like that, and but anyway, but that's kind of how I arrived down here. And, you know, really, like I said, fell in love with the area, and you know, get to go see a race every now and then over at Five Flags, which is, you know, takes me back to a place where I raced a few times there with snowball derbies, you know, years ago, and you know, met a lot of good friends over there. So it's kind of like homecoming a lot of times when I go over there to watch a race. So, you know, it's kind of cool.
Man. We actually mentioned that on the podcast last week. We were talking about just good old earnest, you know, American rural things to do. And it was like, you know, going to a dirt track or going to a track somewhere. That was that was what only entertainment you had for miles and miles, you know, for rural America to go do stuff. And you'll see some sights, buddy, but a bunch of good people and a good time. And is that, you know, and I know, like I said, you've told this story, you know, your dad was into racing and on the junkyard there, and that kind of, you was always tinkering in new cars and fell in love early. But then when you first got the bug, what was the first thing you did to start, I'm going to drive this first time, and then that into, I'm going to do this a whole lot? Well,
I guess I was fortunate or misfortunate, however you want to say, in the early 70s, I guess it was actually late 60s. I went out to BIR, Birmingham International Raceway, and watched the races out there, and went to Midfield Speedway. The old Midfield Speedway is not there anymore, and then of course Savory Speedway, and just fell in love with with racing in general at a very young age. Like you said, JR, my dad used to race, used to go and help him, and became very knowledgeable about automobiles, about the race cars in particular. And I was a very lucky child. I knew what I wanted to do from probably 6 years old on. Didn't know if I'd ever get the chance, but I just always felt like that whatever I did, everything I did was going to be towards driving a race car for as long as I possibly could, and I just pursued my dream continuously, and a lot of hard work, and had a lot of help along the way. I met Pam, when I was 19 years old, and in Panama City, and her cousin Davey introduced us, and it kind of went from there, and had a partner for virtually most of my life now. She's been right beside me, and it really worked well having somebody to support your dream, and I was lucky enough to go make it to the top, and have some decent rides, and a few really good rides, but wasn't lucky enough to win a cup race. I finished second a few times, and thirds and fourths and things like that, and it just wasn't meant to be for whatever reason, and and like I said, it just I was very lucky and fortunate to do it as long as I did.
So you knew from 6 years old that's what you wanted to do.
Most definitely, yeah. It wasn't any doubt. I just I loved it so much.
Were you doing other stuff? Were you into baseball too, or any motorcycles, or just race cars?
No, I had a motorcycle at probably 13 or 14 years old, and until I about killed myself on it, and had a wreck on it, and run into the back of a stopped car. Our car stopped in front of me, and I'll never forget. It was a 1977 Ford Fairmont, and a lady with about 3 or 4 kids in it. The whole line of traffic in front of me, and I stopped running. I turned around and looked, see if it was okay to get on another lane, and when I turned back around, the whole line was stopped in front of me, and next thing I know, I ended up on the trunk of
that Fairmont didn't have no give. There was no give in that Fairmont.
No. And,
just steel. Bam.
Where was that? Where'd you have that wreck?
This was in Alabaster, Alabama, where Interstate 65 ended. Used to end and come around and blend back into 31. And there was a Shell station right there on the right when you got off the interstate. And anyway, of course, my dad was always against motorcycles. My mom loved motorcycles, and so they got in a big fight, of course, when that come about. But I guess I was very fortunate on that. I didn't break any bones. I got some pretty good burns from the exhaust, and knocked all my front 4 or 5 teeth out there in the front. I tried eating it had a 1/4-inch Lexan windshield on it with the fairing and stuff, and I guess my open face helmet then at that time come down. And just
they don't make them like they used to, Johnny. Wow.
No.
And they don't. And I'll tell you what, I bet that didn't taste nothing like that old meat in a piece you get at Milo's either, did it? I mean, it tasted a little different.
Not quite.
No kidding.
Oh. Hey, Hut, what was the first like the first thing that you ever raced? What did you get in? Was it a go-kart or something? I mean, how did you start out there?
I at that time when I was a kid, the go-karts wasn't as big as they are now. The go-karts, now, gosh, man, I mean, they're unbelievable how they build go-karts now. Basically, I had basically a souped-up yard cart, if you'd say, but that was about it. Me and my cousin we had a circular driveway in my house in Calera, and we would race around the driveway. He'd bring his, I'd bring mine, and we'd run into each other a few times, and then we'd in between trying to race each other, and then we'd dart out in the highway and go down the hill and turn right back in the other end of the driveway. And we had to look to our left when we went out in the highway, look to our left and right, make sure there wasn't any traffic so we could, get into the oncoming lane and then cut back in.
Hit the straightaway.
And, make the straightaway. And then between that, we're trying to race each other and watch for traffic too. But we had, it was luckily we survived that. Don't know how.
Did he end up racing? Was he a racer too?
He was. He raced local. He was 2 or 3 years younger than me. My cousin Frankie, he and I grew up together. He stayed with us during the summer. He'd bring his go-kart down, and he'd stay with us all summer. His family was on the other side of Birmingham, but we were still like brothers more than cousins. But we learned a lot of racing tricks from each other, and but he went on. He got into late models too down there, and he won about everything he could in the street stock racing down there. And of course, I was helping him and stuff, and wasn't helping him money wise, but I was helping him work wise. I'd set his cars up and try to teach him everything that I knew, and he was like I said, he stepped up into the late model stuff and had some little bit of success. But when he stepped up in that division, he had to. It got pretty costly, and it was pretty hard for him to continue on, in that stuff.
Yeah, it's like a lot of it. Once you get to that level, you got to have a sponsor. You got to have a metal dealership or a car dealership or somebody. I just saw a thing on Facebook or somewhere like that was showing Smokey and the Bandit shooting that, and they shot a lot of it down in Tampa because Burt Reynolds was good friends with the Buick dealer down there, and they got to use a lot of the vehicles and stuff. That was a key in. And talking about that, what was the first car you ever had? Was one you and your daddy built, wasn't it?
My dad had a 1964 Chevelle that was kind of sitting back in the far back corner of the shop, and he was running his Camaro. They'd stepped up, built a Camaro and all that stuff, and anyway, that Chevelle had sat back there for a couple of years, and wasn't anything going on with it, and Savory Speedway opened a new division up for that where we could run the Chevelle. And so I went to my dad and asked him, I said, would you mind if I put that car together? Could I race it? And he said, sure. He said, but you're going to have to do it all. I can't help you or anything like that. And I said, I don't need your help. I knew how to do it anyways. But
how old were you then? About
I was still 14 then.
That's awesome.
Wow. But I had helped him all along, and had a mentor there, a guy named Paul Robinson, who was like a mentor to me as I was coming up. And my dad was in his parts place selling parts and trying to make money to afford the race cars. And anyway, but Paul was, he would teach me a lot, the right way of doing things and what have you. But anyway, I learned so much from him. But anyway, I went on and put the car together and got it all going, and got ready one Saturday to get ready to go, and or actually one Friday night. And I said everything was done. I said, all I need is a new set of tires because we hadn't run any to have any old tires yet. And so anyway, thought I wasn't going to be able to race that first night. And next morning, I had come in there, had 4 brand new McCrarys sitting there. Actually, I had 6 brand new McCrary tires. My dad had bought me and left them there. So when I come in there, didn't tell anybody. So anyway, I got all them mounted, and we went to the racetrack that night with him, and he carried his car and my car. And his car was priority. He was racing for a championship, and I was just racing for fun. And but he had to always get his car unloaded first, and then get him going through tech, and then whatever was left was my time. But so anyway, after getting his car going, we got it all through tech and got all, he went and practiced, and then I started working on my car and got it all ready to go for the first heat race, because the way it worked, I didn't have any time. I didn't get any practice. And, for like I said, because Dad's car was priority, not mine. Mine was fun, and his was for real. But anyway, I started at the back on the heat race, and I literally couldn't pass not one car. The car was so loose. And so anyway, I probably heard me telling this story on the Dale Jr. download, but anyway, I brought it in. I had one little kid help me. He was probably he was younger than I was, but wasn't too mechanically inclined. But he was a bigger guy, and but anyway, I told him. He said, "What do you need me to do?" I said, "I need to get the jack out and jack up the back of the car. I'm gonna change the leaf springs." And so he said, "You know how to do that?" I said, "Yeah, I know how to do it. I know everything's got to be done." So anyway, so he jacked it up, and I went and got the springs, and we I don't know if you know anything about leaf springs, but there was about six leaves that was kind of like bolted together, like a leaf is kind of hard to explain without.
Yeah, just stacked on top of each other. Yep.
Stack on top. That's right.
Yep.
And these things was bolted, had one center bolt in it. I got on there and undone that, and when I undone that center bolt, all the springs just fell out, all under the cars. And he said, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do? We'll never get this put back together in time." I said, "Yeah, we're good. So anyway, I said, took my, we didn't have dial gauges to check the thickness of the spring, but I knew I needed a stronger left rear spring, and to make it where the car wouldn't be loose. And so anyway, I go over and get my opening wrenches, and just started sticking them on each spring, and found me thicker spring leaves than what I had. Put them all back together, and went out there and started dead last in the feature. And they dropped the green flag, and I stood on the gas, and okay, this ain't bad. So then we went down in 1 and 2, and I come off turn 2, and man, that thing was like stuck. And I was like, "Ooh, this gonna be good."
You knew right then
so,
you were on.
So anyway, I proceeded then to go to the front, and so a guy that was winning about all the races that year, he was leading the race. And anyway, make long story short, I come to the stripe, and no, let me back up. I got in the wreck, I don't know, 5th lap or something. Went to move a guy out of the way, and instead of moving him out of the way, I moved him right in front of me, so he didn't really help himself. So anyway, it been all the drag link on the front of the car. They come in, guys took a jack and got out of the car, and we jacked it up and bowed the drag link straight with a jack, and went back out and started at the back again and come to the front. And I passed the guy that was leading the race on the last lap for the win. I beat him by about a foot to the start-finish line, and won my first race.
That's unbelievable.
That's all it takes, a foot. And that foot right there is what hooked you. And then from then on, you knew, I'm gonna make a living doing this, and I'm gonna whoop some butt, and I'm gonna make this my deal here.
I mean, you felt like a master car chief, crew chief, and driver all in one that night, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
But it was all because you had some help. Obviously, like you said, your dad helped you along the way, and your mentors. But you put in the legwork. You put in the elbow grease. You wasn't scared to work. You're a hard worker. You still a hard worker. That's how we met. And you wasn't gonna sit still. You wasn't gonna just take it. Well, I guess it ain't gonna work out. No, you pushed through and made stuff happen. And that's why you had those opportunities to do those kind of things. It works out that way in life. Well, going back to stay on your younger age for a little bit, you said you weren't really in any other sports and stuff, but I do know you like music. We talked about that at dinner the first time we ever had dinner together. Pam said, "You got to ask him about music." Or as soon as she knew I worked in music, she said, "Oh, buddy, he's gonna be all over you. He loves some music." Well, is that something that got passed down from your family as well, or is that just being a teenager liking rock and roll, or how did the music thing, and what were your who did you like at first? I
was a big country music fan, raised on listening to country music all time at my race shop. That's all I knew. I knew that every country song come on there, the words, and from first word to the last word, and how you just listen to the radio all the time. You can't help it.
Absolutely.
Do that. But I don't know. I always, I took guitar lessons when I was young, and for probably 6 years. And, matter of fact, the teacher used to tell my mom, God, I've never had a student that stuck with me for that long, And so anyway, I did that, and after 6 years, he up and left me. Just stopped teaching and went to be a principal at a school and didn't care nothing about teaching anymore. And I that was the last of playing the guitar.
What age was
I was
that?
always, I think I was probably about 13 when because I did it early on, in school, probably from, I don't know, second grade.
Did you ever play guitar and try to swoon your classmates at school?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Just You played at home. You wasn't out in public. It wasn't a publicly ready yet.
No. I wasn't. I definitely wasn't publicly ready. I wanted to be, but we kind of pushed things ahead a little bit on it. We, when we moved to North Carolina, we built us a party barn there, and we had a karaoke and all that stuff in that, and really more I used it more as a relaxation to get away from racing, from all the
just the travel and the press and all that stuff.
Take you to another place that you're not thinking about race cars or sponsor commitments or things like that, and
all the stuff.
But I enjoyed like I said, the music is. I really feel like if I wouldn't have raced cars, that would have been my second choice. But to do something in the music industry, because I still love it to this day. But of course, it's a little late to make a change in in your career.
Never know now.
Oh, it's never too late.
Today,
Never too late.
We got to get you a TikTok video. We'll get Brantley. We'll get you a reel together and after this, and we'll get you. Hey, do you got any of those videos y'all doing karaoke at your party barn? Oh man, there you go. There's your money right there, buddy. Your money.
That's it.
We got to have some of that.
It's already punched.
Yeah. We used to do that every year. New Year's, we throw a big New Year's party, and we'd always this party had turned out to be it started off about 50 people, and we did it for almost 20 years, and it grew to like about 350.
It was legendary,
and we never.
Wow.
It was crazy. I mean, it in a 50 by 100 metal building that had a rock floor, but it had a concrete dance floor with a stage and all the lights and sound system. It was unreal.
Who was the back then? You if you don't want to, you got to tell it. But you can tell some of them that wouldn't care if you told it. Who was the wild man back there? Because you like to party, but you reserve. You keep your stuff together. You ain't no big super wild cat, but you like to have a good time. But I know how the boys are when everybody gets together. Or the wives or the ladies,
the Tigs of the group.
Yeah, well, and because you're also in the club with us of guys who outkick their coverage that way. So I know you and Miss Pam like to have a good time, but I'm sure y'all got some couple friends, or it may be they're celebrities or not, but that used to really like to have a good one.
Right. Well, our motto was we always at our party barn. What happens at the barn stays at the barn. So it was always kind of. Kept all that, under wraps and what have you. And, but we had some great times. It was, of course, all of it was good, clean fun. And we like I said, the New Year's parties, everybody looked forward to it. And, as our kids come along, they want to do a Halloween party. So, then we turned into having two parties a year, and it was a younger crowd for them, obviously, but some of the adults would come anyway. But and then of course the New Year's party was adults only, and it was like I said, have a special place like that for a party.
Perfect.
All that was just perfect.
And why chance it? Just build it at your house, so you ain't got to go nowhere. Ain't got to.
Oh, it's right there in your backyard.
That's right.
What's great,
That's right.
Hut? What's great about that? He just asked you a question. And to this day, what you said, what happens at the barn stays there. He still didn't name any names,
Beautiful.
He still didn't sell anybody out. That's so good.
That's how you know.
It was a test.
That
was a test.
That's right.
One thing I can tell you this much. I mean, we had, of course, my dad-in-law, Donnie Allison, and Bobby Allison, my uncle-in-law, or whatever, however it would be to me. But, we would have all of them over for that, and there'd be several other race drivers show up there. And, it was just a good, clean, fun place, and we just like I
Did
said,
y'all
have
ever
a
have?
blast.
Did y'all
Love to
ever
be the
have
fly on the
bands?
wall on that
Did y'all
one.
ever have live music?
Every year we would do a skit. Let me tell you this first. Every year we would do a skit. It would be like a show. Everybody would. We had everything from the 50s to the 70s to one year we did a salute to the military. This was right after 9/11. We had. Gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other
But
ones.
just theme
This is
parties, like
incredible.
theme.
What a
Yeah,
party.
you had a theme
Yeah,
for it.
theme.
Different themes.
Oh,
Yep,
love it.
yep. And man, it was the salute to the military was probably one of our best ones we ever did. It was the most heartfelt,
Impactful.
and everybody took it serious.
Yeah.
We had it took roughly close to 50 people to put this show on.
Wow.
We had a sound guy that controlled all the sound from the sound booth there. Had a guy that did nothing but work the lights on the stage. All that. It was
full on production.
Yeah, and
Wow.
we'd start about 3 months prior to the New Year's party, and we'd all get together and party not party, but practice.
Practice.
Every now and then we'd
Party a
party.
little.
We're saving the big party
Practice
for
party.
the
Right.
big party.
Yeah.
But it was some really good times, and I'll have to show you guys some of them tapes sometime or
Heck
CDs. We got some we DVDs, excuse me.
Yeah.
From them.
Oh yeah.
And,
I will definitely have to watch some of those at some point. I can't wait.
Yes.
Yeah, I was my designated guy that I did every year for the most part. I did Elvis. I did Elvis. Did that, and
I
I
see
can
it.
see it.
I can see it. Yeah, for sure.
Is he probably one?
And,
Is he your all-time
but-
favorite?
Probably without a doubt. Yeah, I just I grew up in that era, and
like
yeah,
cars and
yeah.
Elvis just went together, man. I mean,
That's it,
that was
man.
that was
Yep,
it. That
yep.
was after World War II, the 50s. I mean, that was a
Yep.
high point for America right there, rolling into the 60s. I mean,
That's right.
Oh, you
as
dang
good
right.
as it get. And those cars were so cool,
Uh,
man. And you come up in the era where
Yes.
I mean, everything had character and they
Yep.
were built to last. And I mean, and you could
Yep.
fix them and work on them yourself. It wasn't a computer, man. That's wild. Well,
No,
hey,
that's
talking
right.
about you said you did have some live music there. When you were coming up, did y'all go to any concerts when you were like in high school and stuff? Did you start going to rock or country shows or anything in the area?
Well, when I was a kid, I went to what we called at that time it's called the Municipal Auditorium in Birmingham. I was very fortunate enough to see three guys. It was three country music guys. That was semi-popular at that time. A guy named Conway Twitty, Jerry Lee Lewis,
Kinda.
and
Wow.
George Jones.
Oh my
And,
God, that's
and
ridiculous.
all three in one
Good
night.
night.
And I didn't realize what I was getting
Oh,
to see then, but Jerry Lee Lewis was the
The killer.
he was the one that come along at the end of the
He closed.
closed, and man, he rocked the whole place. I'll
Did he-
never forget.
Did he light his
But,
piano on fire every show, or was
Did-
that? Did he just
did-
do that one time? What's the
No,
story? of
he
that?
didn't do it there.
He didn't
I
do
think
it
that
there.
was before he. I think that's when he was still poor.
Yeah.
He hadn't
Yeah,
made his
right.
money yet.
So this was
Yeah.
were,
But,
were they already
he was-
big stars at this point? They were already big.
Yeah,
stars.
they were. Yeah, they were. Well, I assume. I was probably 6 years old, something like that, maybe, when I
Right.
went and seen them. I remember it.
And that further
you know,
hooked
and,
you into loving some country music after seeing that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then
How would it not?
of course, as I got older, I seen Lee Greenwood in concert at a local bar there in Birmingham. Matter of fact, when I was racing and stuff, I'd see him occasionally around the racetrack, and we'd always talk about place there in Birmingham, right? I think the name of Sonny Dukes or somewhere like that, where he would go to. Seen him there when he had Ring on the new song just come out. Ring on her finger, time on her hands, and some of the other ones I can't even remember. But he was always big. Loved him. But like I said, I had throughout my racing stuff, I was able to meet a lot of them.
That's what I was going to say. By the time you got to being a
yeah.
NASCAR driver, and to touch back on that too, you talked about the wins and losses and all that in NASCAR, and your dad supporting you. And I always think about it, when it's like I hear somebody say, well, they, a guy that I went to college with or went to my high school played in the NBA, and they say, yeah, he was in the NBA, but he only had like 4 points and 3 rebounds in his career. I'm like, yeah, but he played 12 years at the NBA. I'm like, he's one of the best 500 people on the planet. And that's like, you unfortunately didn't get, and you had some real doozies, and we've heard those stories, and they're well documented because they are some legendary race stories when you come to nuts and bolts of racing. But to not get that, but to have all the sec twos and top tens and stuff like that, it's like, you were in NASCAR for almost 2 decades, earning a good living and living out your dreams at the highest level. There is no slight on that. That's like saying Charles Barkley wasn't a good basketball player because he didn't win an NBA championship. You know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's when they were selling out venues everywhere.
And NASCAR is not what it is now without you guys, because you were kind of there, right? I mean, you were doing the underneath here, the Dash Series but then NASCAR comes along in its infancy of really being a Cup Series when Winston put the cigarette company put the big paycheck behind it. And then it turned, then the big sponsors started coming. It wasn't regional car dealerships and steel fabricators anymore. So, I mean, it literally wouldn't be what it is today without your contributions, and all you guys that ran during your era because of that transition into the big leagues,
I appreciate that. Yeah, I was very fortunate. It was when I come in it was right into early stages of where it peaked. And then, of course, got to race against some really top-notch race drivers with Dale Sr. and, every week, week in and week out with, people like that. That of course didn't realize at the time that how what you was going through. You just thought he was another guy.
Well, you were lucky there. You got to do both. You got to race the legends that you grew up. Your father-in-law and uncle-in-law and Red and all these legends, Dale and all them, and Richard Petty and all them were still around. And then transition in to all the big stars, the Jeff Gordons and all them who end up being later on. They all came in towards the end of your career. So you were really in the sweet spot of getting to do all of it.
That's right.
Both sides of it. Yep. That's
very much so. Yep.
Yeah. You got to race against all of the best of the best on both sides. Yep. It's really unbelievable. That's when I started watching NASCAR, probably around 91, which was when you were in your heyday, and always I just loved your name. So it was like
that's a great name.
It's like, what a name. It's just the coolest name ever. One question I have not heard answered, but one thing that I totally do remember as a kid that I loved, you and Jimmy Spencer didn't seem to get along too well on the track. Have y'all made up now? Do you ever talk, or how is that? Dude was always crazy and entertaining to see.
Or was it a work?
From my side,
or were y'all just working everybody?
Or was it a work?
Let me clarify something. Jimmy Spencer never got along with anybody on the track. It wasn't just me.
I was going to say, I don't know how anybody could get along with Hut. Hut's about as easy going as they get.
No,
he really is.
Yeah, Spencer and I got it. He would, every Cup ride I had from the Heinz ketchup car, Spencer would come along and he'd go to the car owner and he'd say, Hut's not doing a good job driving your car. I can drive it better than Hut. And so then I got fired from the not saying he had anything to do with it, but he would go in there and toot his own horn louder than I was tooting my own horn. So and then when I drove for Bobby, he come along and drove for Bobby when after he followed me to Bobby's, and then I left Bobby's and went to Junior Johnson to the McDonald's car. He follows me, goes to McDonald's, and
wow, I just chased you around there.
Sounds like you got a stage 5 clear.
Then and go, and then I go to the Smoking Joe's car, and he follows me to Smoking Joe's car. I mean, and it's like,
dang,
dude, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why or whatever. But anyway, he had
I
a
think
thing,
he's just
I
jealous
guess.
of your hair. I think that's
Yeah,
it.
Probably
He knew you.
was.
That was
Yeah,
it.
he had none. But when I was in North Carolina before we moved, I worked at a place called Stock Car Steel. We sold all the steel and aluminum stuff like that to probably 95% of the NASCAR teams. And Jimmy would come in there from time to time, and he and I would talk. You know, I don't know. We'd sit there and talk for an hour, hour and a half, just like he was my best
Yeah.
friend. So I mean, I don't hold any grudges, and he don't hold any grudges. I'm sure
It was just
So
business.
We,
It was just
Just-
business.
That's
It's
just
just
the way he
business.
was.
Yeah.
And
He
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted to drive,
I mean,
and he was willing to
Yep.
run
Yeah, I was-
over anybody to do
Oh, yeah.
it. So it explains
Yep.
it's exactly what he was on the
Yep.
track. What you
Yeah, I was kinda
that's
hoping-
what makes sense.
that kept
Yeah.
going to today, so we could. Like, I was already thinking my wheels were turning in this new age with like Jake Paul versus so and so. I saw today that John Rocker's about to fight Patrick Mahomes' dad. You know what I mean? I was like, maybe we can get y'all
Oh,
two on
wow.
the track somewhere. Like, there's this one, probably the greatest track in all of America. Where I mean, unbelievable crowds have always attended down at South Alabama Motor Speedway. I'm pretty sure you've been there. We
Yeah.
get y'all down there in Kinston,
Oh, yeah.
Alabama, have a one-on-one.
Yep.
Put it on
That's
YouTube
right.
Live. Just probably make millions.
I've been,
And
I
then
like
Hut
it.
Just settling an
Hut
old
could
grudge
break out
there,
his
yeah.
music career after that. That'll be the debut of the Hut Stricklin.
Yes,
Yeah.
center
there you go.
stage right there.
All-star
There you go.
That's it.
That's
Three
right.
originals
I love it.
and a cover.
That's
Just
kind
like
of
that.
plan.
I'm in on this. This would work. This would
I
totally
think
work.
so too.
Oh, but it was that way though. It was
Oh.
business back then, though, wasn't it, Hut? Y'all were all fighting for spots and seats, and I mean wins and everything else. And I mean, so
Oh,
I mean, everybody
absolutely.
had to
Yeah,
probably,
absolutely.
and I don't know Jimmy obviously, but I know you. I know you get your mind to something, you're detailed, and you work hard, and you're proud of stuff.
Mhm.
You go do what you got to do to defend it. And his mentality was probably just different, but y'all were going after the same stuff, and it could have been he might have
Absolutely,
been a pro wrestling fan and knew he couldn't. He need a good baby face needs a heel, and he thought if y'all have a little rivalry, maybe y'all get to sell some extra T-shirts or something. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Who
knows?
But glad that worked out. Y'all didn't end up
Yeah.
in jail fighting each other or something crazy after that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
no.
but hey, going back to talking, we'll hit on NASCAR a few more little questions here. But one thing I was wondering, did you ever have any what do you call it? Oh, I'm losing my train of thought here. But when you superstitions with your number, did you ever and were you involved in picking the numbers for the cars? I'm sure some, but how did that work? And how did you pick numbers? Were you superstitious? Which one was your favorite?
Well, when you got to the cup level, no, you didn't have really any say so whatsoever. It was more of the NASCAR. First off, NASCAR, when you get to that level, NASCAR owns all the numbers. They just they're on loan to each team. To answer your question, no,
Nothing.
you didn't have any.
Did any of them
at that
sentimental
level.
to you for any reason? Was any one of them your dad's birthday or your mom's birthday or something? Not really.
No. My number I always ran on my own personal race car that when I started basically was number 7.
Okay.
That was my dad's number. Actually, my dad started off. He had number 7.5 was his number, and then as the years went on, he dropped a half and just went to
Was
7.
it really 7.5?
Yeah,
That's
what
great. I didn't know
he
that.
done, when he got his first race car built, it was a 1956 Ford, and he was getting ready to take it to the racetrack, and it was one Saturday evening, and he said, "I got to put a number on this." And one of his best friends that actually worked at the racetrack took up pitgate money, was hanging out with him, and about every 10 sales that come through at my dad's junkyard was $7.50. And Dad, they'd ask my dad, "How much do you want for this?" Dad say, "Oh, give me 7.5." 7.5. So like I said, about 10 or 12 sales went through, and so finally, my dad's friend there said, "Why don't you just number it 7.5? Because that
Your
seems like
favorite number.
a popular number that you're charging everybody." So anyway, he that's where that come from, and then like I said, as years went by, he dropped the half and just started running number 7.
How
that's
good
so
was
good.
your dad? We've talked about everything, but we didn't talk. You said he was running for championship, so I mean he has to be pretty good because you turned out really well.
Dad was an exceptional race car driver on the quarter mile racetracks. He never really had the funding that it really took to perform on the bigger tracks. At that time when he was racing, his business was basically getting going early, mid '60s, and it really didn't really take off until middle '70s on, and that was about the time I started racing. And but when it comes to quarter mile racetracks, he was when he'd go qualify every week. I always thought that when I seen a guy just driving his butt off, sideways off the corner and stabbing the gas and all, I thought he was going to be running fast. Well, 99 times out of 100, that's going to be the slowest guy, that goes around the racetrack. And my dad was always right the opposite. You'd look at him and, he'd go through 1 and 2 and he'd be like, man, just smooth as silk. And, never hear him come off the throttle, but you'd never hear him go down on it. And he had to come off of it, but you wouldn't really, he'd come off of it so slow and on it so slow. But anyway, real smooth. And, next thing you know, with the PA system, we'd come by, new track record, and like, what? But he was, like I said, when it come to quarter miles, he was the king. He was very sharp, but once I started racing, he tried it a little bit out at half mile tracks out at Birmingham and Montgomery and stuff. And, he just basically couldn't afford 2 cars. And he got to running, park one week. He blew his engine up, whatever. And, got to watch me race and, realized that he actually had more fun watching me race than he did racing himself. And so he told me, he said, I'm going to get rid of my stuff and
that's awesome.
And put everything behind you and see what happens. And so
that was kind of going to lead me to it. I know that racing's expensive as all get out at any level.
Yeah.
How did you get to that? That kind of explains how you were starting to be able to work your way up that ladder to get on to where eventually, you made it to the Cup. How did you do that? How did you make money and all of that stuff back in then? Was it just from winning races or?
Yeah, everything was strictly, wasn't really getting any sponsorship. Dad was helping me all the way up to about 1982, something like that, 81, 82. And, he had an opportunity to buy his business, buy the real estate there. And it was a couple $1 million to buy it. And he said, I'm going to have to, back away from a race car. You're going to have to go out on your own and, get your own sponsor and all that stuff. Cause I'm not going to be able to afford to do it anymore until I get my, buy this land and get it paid off. And then by then I can come back and help you maybe. And, thought it was the end of the world when he said that, but really the way it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me because it taught me that, the money didn't grow on trees, and I had the hardest thing for me to do was to go out and ask people for money. And, it just, it just wasn't in me to do that. I just wasn't, I wasn't good at that. But my desire to go race and to win was greater than the scaredness, I guess you'd say, of going out and asking people for money. So
you could move past it because you knew what you were trying to get to, and you knew you had to do it
at all cost. Yeah.
So anyway, I went and was able to land a few sponsors here and there that kind of helped me out a lot. When to get me by. Became good friends with the banker down in Clear at Central State Bank, and I would not advise anybody to do this, but at that time, I'd go borrow $1,000, $1,200 a week, and go run a race or 2 races one weekend, and I'd go win, and come Monday I'd go pay it back, and then I'd go again, and did that numerous times, and luckily the banker saw something in me that luckily.
That's
And
because that's basically like a cash game back then too, wasn't it? Everybody puts money in the pot and kind of splitting it up a little bit too, right? Or
well, I wasn't splitting it up. I was putting it right back in the car. You know, everything I made. I was putting it right back in the car, and we just very tough thing.
But you were betting on yourself, and you knew you weren't
for the most
part, gambling on cards
yeah.
or a machine or nothing else. You're gambling on yourself. You're like, if everything holds up, I know I can make this happen.
I got a big break. A guy named Billy Knight out of Haleyville, Alabama, give me an opportunity to drive his dash cart at Daytona. He'd seen me race and what have you, and on the late models and stuff, and went to drive that car and went to Daytona and made 2 laps. The engine blew up first time. Didn't have another one, so we was done. With Daytona, didn't get to race Daytona for the first time.
That sucks.
And so we went and come back and we went run a 4-cylinder dash race there at Birmingham, and we tore a rear end up or something. We was leading the race there, and then went to Montgomery. They had a dash race at Montgomery where we won that dash race there, and then got throughout all that. I got to know a guy named Richard Mash, who Michael Walter drove for in the dash series, and we became good friends. And every time we just always would meet each other somewhere in the pit area, unintentional, just kind of. And he'd always say, "Man, I want you to drive my car." And I said, "Man, I'd love to drive your car," because he had like top-notch stuff. And anyway, the next year, the gentleman he had driving for his car got killed at Daytona in a test. And he called me up and said, "I hate to ask you to do this, but I'd like for you to drive my car at Daytona, and don't know how far I'll be able to go without sponsorship and everything, but you're the best driver that I know of, and that's who I want to drive my car." And so I had to tell a guy out of Haleyville that I chose to go with this other guy, and took a 1 race chance, and we went to Daytona and finished second down there.
Wow!
And then I guess about a month later, before the next race, we started. We got a sponsor there, a local sponsor there. Pontiac dealership, Bush Pontiac, there in right outside of Hickory somewhere. Anyway, picked that sponsorship up, and we went on that year and won the Dash Series championship. We had something like 9 wins out of 12 races.
Wow!
And we dominated and won the championship, and it was and then that door opened the door for me with Pontiac. I became real good friends with all the people at Pontiac, and driving. That was the brand of car that the dash car was, and anyway, which led me to Rod Osterland's deal on that Rod Osterland was starting a new team, which turned out to be the Heinz 57 car, and in 1989, and I took my money. I didn't want to run any more Dash Series cars. I took my money from winning the championship, and I built my own Grand National car at that time, what they call a Bush Grand National car.
Right.
And went up to Carolinas, going to race it up there. And people said, "What you going up to Carolinas for?" I said, "Well, I'm going to try to race in front of some of them teams, where they can maybe might can get noticed." And,
because for people who don't know, NASCAR, it's historically North Carolina area is where everybody's home base is. It was that way too then, apparently.
Yeah.
Always has been, hadn't it?
Yep, same way. Yep. But I went and raced up there. But every time I'd go up there to race, I'd always swing by over there Osterland's, and because I knew they was putting together a team, and I'd stop in there and got to know the general manager, Roland Walotica, who was the general manager for Dale Earnhardt Sr. also when he drove for Rod Osterland. This was 10 years later from he was starting up his new team. But anyway, I got to know him, and I said, I want you to come watch me race some night, and one of these weekends. So I got to where I'd go up there. A race was on Saturday. I'd go up there on Thursday, and I'd swing by and have my car and trailer, and come watch me race Hickory. And so anyway, he got to where he finally come watch me race, and he said, I started like, I don't know, 23rd or something like that. And at that time, it was a big field and all that stuff. And ended up finishing ninth that night. And I was really dejected because I wanted to win, but, you're going against the top dogs at, on the home tracks and stuff. And Roland stood there in my pits the whole time. And I got out after the race. I said, man, I'm sorry I didn't, do any better. And he said, doing better? He said, man, you done great. I said, really, I didn't win, And he said, well, he said, let me tell you something. He said, I sit there and watched you all night. He said, do you realize how many cars passed you all night? And I said, no, I really don't. He said, not a one. I said, what? He said, not one car passed you all night. He said, you passed cars all night. And he said, that was very impressive. And he said, and I want you to come over my house and tomorrow, and we're gonna call Rod and talk to him, Rod Osterlin.
Wow.
And so anyway, we did that, and Rod flew down a week or two later and met me and my wife, and we kind of went from there. And that's kind of what gave us a break to get into the Cup stuff.
That's awesome, man. You go from 23rd to 9th, and in your mind, like you said, dejected, but he realized that you went from 23rd to 9th without getting passed. So he saw something.
That's
there.
right.
That's so cool.
Hey,
man.
it's funny you mentioned it. Did you ever talk to the guy in Haleyville again? Did you ever hook back up with him at any point?
Never did. No, I never did. He's a great guy, was a great guy. I think it's been so long ago now, I think he's probably passed away.
But who were some of your buds that you really liked to do stuff with, off the track? I know y'all had to, because like anything, you racing some, but then there's a lot of downtime and press days and events you got to be at together. Was there anybody that you really just enjoyed, or you and Pam and y'all vacation together with them or anything?
Gosh, not other drivers. I didn't like any drivers.
Hut is a competitor, baby. That's what I wanted to hear. You probably took out like your crew chief and his wife, like a couple of your buddies from the shop. That was your buddies. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. We kept our circle small. Tried to, but for the most part, it was. I never liked the idea of having, being close friends with people you're on the track with. I was too close to Davey. Closer than I really wanted to be, and but for the most part, he and I mean, we were friends and true friends, and when. Hated to race against him. He was tough, and he knew I was tough, and we took a chance on running into each other and didn't want to wreck each other. So, both of us always took a little extra pains and never run into each other on a racetrack. We might do a tire mark or something like that on each other. But,
is there ever any of those legendary stories at either one of your parties or a Christmas dinner or something of you and your father-in-law arguing, and y'all get out there in the wives' cars and race down the driveway or anything crazy like that?
No, or
nothing like that. No. By that time, the alcohol had kicked in.
Yeah, didn't need to be driving nothing. The greatest NASCAR movie, in my opinion, or my generation's opinion, for sure, that opened the eyes, and it was in the heyday of NASCAR, was Days of Thunder. And you actually had a part in helping on some of that. You were around during that era. That was in its height.
First day, they said, well, we know we're going to be here, 10 days, so here's $100 a day per diem. We want to go ahead and give you that. Okay, so took that. So, we don't know why they give me the $100 a day per diem, because they had an 18-wheeler truck every day that showed up at the racetrack, and we'd eat breakfast off of it. Then the truck would leave and come back and bring lunch, and then if we was there doing a late night movie scene, we'd have supper, and every meal was just
it's all catered.
Prime. It was all they made it on that truck supposedly. I mean, it was
like a.
I mean, it had every day. I mean, it was live. Prime rib and lobster tail, or the most elaborate food you ever
catering on set every day, along with craft services and all that stuff. That was
like a food truck.
Yeah, that was Paramount Pictures. That was as big as it gets.
Oh yeah, my first day they give me a key to my room or to my
dressing room trailer.
My dressing room, trailer, and I thought that was pretty cool, man. Who am I, man? I ain't got my own, have my own room
You
and
had your
all that
own little
stuff.
deal? Your whole
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But I
Did it
never
have
hardly
did
went
it
in
have your
there,
name on the door? You
Sure
didn't
did.
even
Wow.
think about to get it at the time.
Well, really at that time you didn't have. I wouldn't walk around with a camera.
Right.
We didn't have
Right.
cell
I know.
phones like we
Yeah.
do now with cameras on them, stuff. And but it
Wow.
sure did. Yep.
That's some
Matter
of
of
those
fact, I might
things.
have a picture of that.
I bet those are some of the little memories that if you could go back in time and have a phone, that would be one that you would love to have.
Oh,
to just,
yeah. Oh,
take
yeah.
a picture of
Yep.
everything
Yes.
that's happening. That
Yep.
would have been
You were the expert. You were the
But it's-
expert talent. They had to bring in the ringer to tell the boys how to
That's
do
right.
it.
I think Greg Sachs was a full time guy there. He was actually the only full time race driver that helped work on the Days of Thunder movie. There was myself and Rick Mast and Bobby Hamilton, and I think that was about it. I think Sterling Marlin come along there some and helped, but it was a fun thing to do. Matter of fact, I made more money doing that than I did driving a race
Wow.
car. And so, I'd like to pursue that a little
Yeah.
bit farther, but
right.
it just wasn't any more Days of Thunders to be done at
know
that
it.
time.
And
That's
you
right.
said
But,
your
uh,
interactions
that's right.
you had with like Tom Cruise and all, everybody was fine. You thought everybody was it was cordial and it was a good bunch, huh?
Very much so. Yep. The kind of like you talking about, you sitting around a lot. While they're waiting to film the next scene, there was a lot of that goes on. You see, we was sitting in the grandstands at Volusia County trying to, as they were filming a scene with Tom and crew chief guy. Can't think of his name right off. But,
Oh God, Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall. Yeah. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
Great actor.
And
yes.
that was such a neat thing to be a part of. Because I was a Robert
Yeah.
Duvall fan too, and then and he was
Was he
incredible.
cool?
Was he as nice as
being
you think
around.
he would be?
Very much.
What you see on film, is that kind of his demeanor and how
He
he
was
is?
so down to earth, man. You would never know he was.
He's like you said, he's got to be one of my top 3
Man.
all time actors.
Man, he what? I really feel like in person he was more down to earth in person than what you see.
And
on
he
film.
was friends with
is.
all of the country guys too. He was friends with Waylon and Merle Haggard and all those guys.
Really?
Yeah, they used to run together
Wow.
and do stuff,
Yep.
and they were all friends. Willie, that whole
Wow.
bunch.
I do have a
Yeah.
question about Robert Duvall. Was his delivery of the spoken word the same way it was in the movies? The way he could deliver, like, you know what
Did
I
he
mean?
talk
Like
the same
his
way?
pace and
Oh, yeah.
cadence.
Yeah,
He
same
talked
way.
the same
Yeah,
way?
That's
I
so
mean,
cool.
exactly.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
now he could stretch it out a little bit, make it more
Right.
Sure.
animated, whatever. But for the most part, what you see in the
Yeah.
movies was him in person.
That's-
I mean, he
that's
really. I would just really.
So you're
Amazed
getting,
with
yeah, and you're
how he
thinking, I've
was.
watched this guy in some of my favorite movies. I mean, Lonesome Dove. Are
Oh,
you
yeah.
kidding me? And
Yeah.
here I am.
Oh, my God.
Hanging out with him and the
Yep.
biggest actor in the world right now, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I mean,
Still got that
Yeah.
on VHS. I think it's a
Yeah.
three VHS deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tom, I didn't. Tom, he pretty much stayed.
he was
To
focused.
himself
You
for the
said,
most
huh?
part.
He was
He re-
focused.
Yeah, he didn't. He was the most, by far the most dedicated and focused individual that I've ever probably been around.
Wow.
Wow.
He was so, every scene, he could do a scene in 2 or 3 takes, and it was really good. And they'd say, "Okay, Tom, that's good." He said, "No, I'm gonna do it again." And he would, a few of the scenes there at Volusia County, he'd do them, 25 to 35 times, before he said, "Okay,
Wow.
I'm good." And when he said
He
it was
was
good, it was
locked
good.
in.
But he was. I mean, it was everything he did was strictly, he give 110%. I mean, just. He was so dialed in and focused on his job at hand. And, when he got in a race car, he wanted to know all about it and stuff. And, I sit there and, I'd help him buckle in, different things like that. And, he'd ask questions, what is this for down here? And, what does this do? And, just different questions, about certain knobs and stuff.
He wanted
like
to be
that.
accurate. He didn't want to just grab something that wouldn't be
No,
right.
no,
Wow.
that's right. Exactly right. Now how do where you put your hands on, wheel? I said, well, I kind of probably different than some people. My arms are a little longer, and I use more of my elbow to turn the steering wheel on my right elbow, and just because your steering wheel was always so close to you, where he, when he was doing the filming and stuff, he had it extended. He had to make it look more real so he could get more action.
Yeah.
It was just pretty neat thing.
That's
like I said,
cool.
to be
It's
around.
just somebody be, it's funny. Like, and I heard that being talked about before, because you see it later on as you talk about he does his own stunts and does all these things. But he was just dialed in from day one. It's not something he developed later on. It was obviously just innate in him. Just a human being. And like you said, he could have probably ended up being a professional NASCAR driver, just one of those kind of people with that kind of laser focus.
No doubt.
And
And
commitment.
it shows in that movie
There's
because
no
it
doubt.
still holds up and stands the test of time as just a great movie. And I mean, a real. And would you say this, because you were in it at the present time when they shot it, was it a pretty good analogy of a pretty good movie as far as what was really going on in the sport at the time? I mean, obviously it was exaggerated for the love scenes and all that, but did they get a lot of it right?
They did. It was probably one of the better ones that I've seen as far as getting things right and doing it like it actually is. But I don't know. I think he's few things I try to tell them. I think if they could have somehow captured that, the gentlemen start your engines right after the national anthem. If they could have captured the feel of gentlemen start your engines when all the engines fire and ground shaking, and you can't. I mean, I've been around it thousands of times.
Gives me chills right now thinking about it.
I love it.
When they hit that anthem, buddy, it ain't nothing like a NASCAR race or at a rodeo or somewhere like that. When they do it, and buddy, they hit them cars or them horses come out, buddy. That's as good as it gets. And then
it blew my mind. I took my son to Talladega. I think this was 2012 or 13. And man, that's the first time I've been to a NASCAR race. And when they did that, it was absolutely so surreal. It was like, oh my God, this is getting real, boys. This is
the heart of America right there. That's good working class folks. That's real America right there. That's the America we grew up on. Food wise, you grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm sure you're a fan of meat and threes and good old Southern food like the rest of us. Was barbecue a big thing?
When I left Alabama, I thought Alabama had the best barbecue, without a doubt. And then I moved to North Carolina, and of course went around a few barbecue places up there, and they were okay. And then we found this one place up there in North Carolina that put which most of them do. I didn't know at that time, put slaw on their barbecue, and I thought, man, that's the craziest thing I ever seen anybody do. And so I got to try it. So anyway, I tried it and got hooked on it, and now I won't hardly eat a barbecue.
I'm the same way. I ate one in Memphis that way one time, and was like, I didn't know that was a thing. How did I not know about this?
Awesome.
Man, I'd like to go back now to a few of these places in the Birmingham area where we used to eat. Because a lot of times when I'd fly home after a race, I'd always meet my lawyer there on Monday and meet him somewhere down in Birmingham, and we'd talk about the race and what all happened and all that good stuff. And we'd always had a certain barbecue place we'd go to there, and place called Ollie's Barbecue there in Birmingham. I don't know if they're still open or not. I think they've actually shut down, but one of the greatest places I've ever eaten as far as barbecue. We always look forward to going there.
Who did you buddy up with anybody while you were playing that you ran into multiple times? I know we talked about you got to be at shows, because if people don't know this, you had never been to a NASCAR race. Most times the night before, the night after the race, so there's a big concert on the infield or somewhere on the track or something, or outside the track. And I remember one time we opened for Travis Tritt outside of Bristol, and we opened for 38 Special on the infield of Talladega. And actually this April 26th, Justin Moore is playing the infield of Talladega the Saturday night before the race in April this year.
Wow.
Lacey.
Yeah.
That's
So,
cool. Yeah.
were you in your heyday of riding, which you were riding for a long time, but during that time, who were, so I know,
Yeah.
didn't you say you ran, Tracy Lawrence did a few things and, some
Yeah.
different ones. Who were some that you remember from that era?
I always loved Tracy Lawrence for sure. As far as the country stuff.
I can't wait to hook y'all two
38
up.
Special.
Y'all go get
Yeah,
along fine.
yeah,
Y'all go
yeah.
love each other.
Yeah. The 38 Special, tell you a quick story about them. I was doing an autograph session, I guess in 96 or 97 in Miami at a Circuit City when they was my sponsor, and they had 38 Special coming there and did an autograph session with me. They kind of split up. I was in the middle and they down each, this long table. Anyway, they was in awe to meet me and I was in awe to meet them. And anyway, shook hands and, got, friends and what have you. And so anyway, we got ready to leave and he said, he asked me, you got any plans? What are you fixing to do? I said, I'm probably going back to the motel or whatever anyway. So I said, go walk through the mall here with us. So anyway, walked through the mall, and I was walking through the mall. They said one of the singers had a guitar they wanted to go look at the guitar store. So anyway, we walked through there, and I walked in there, and of course all the people that worked at the guitar store knew who they were, and so they each one of them grabbed a guitar off the wall, and they were looking for a guitar. If I remember this right, it's called a Rickenbacker.
Rickenbacker, yeah.
It was at that time it was like it just come out, if I remember right, or something like that. But anyway, it was about a whatever 12-string guitar or something, if I remember right, what made it unique. But anyway, they said, yeah, we got two of them. And so guys, they give them each one. They plugged into an amp over there, and so I noticed they all had grabbed a guitar and they sat around there, and all of a sudden, man, next thing I knew, okay, you ready? You ready? Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, more, they all split up and started playing guitars. Man, I'm gonna tell you what, man, that was incredible. I mean, them guys just out of the blue, and I looked up and there was people that was outside the doors. I mean, outside the glass windows in the mall, all the way around with their, up there just listening and just
at all,
shouting and stuff. I mean, it's crazy, but that was pretty cool to be a part of that. I was inside with them guys, and like I said, it was looking back, you didn't really realize how cool that was.
What do they call that today? Busking or whatever, something like that. We just pop up, and start playing. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not. But I know.
That's
I know
crazy.
I can't believe you didn't
like
get a guitar off and act like, at least for the pick or something, be like, hell yeah, I'm playing with 38 Special.
I couldn't fake it. They were too good for me.
Well, now we know who your band's going to be when we start the Hut Stricklin music career here. When you get ready to retire again, that's what we go do. 38 Special back in Hut. This is going to be amazing.
38 Special.
Yeah. Loosely,
that's
baby.
Right.
Did they play their hits? How long did they play?
No, they played probably. I know 1 or 2 songs really always played, but I mean it was so loud. I mean, man, it was you knew who they was when they started playing. I don't remember which song it was.
Wow,
but man, it was. I mean, it was
like something you see in a movie.
That really sounds like something out of the Blues Brothers or something.
Yeah.
Like the Southern rock version of the Blues Brothers. So do you like that kind of stuff too? You always like classic rock, Southern rock, all that?
Oh, I like all of it. I love country music. All of it. The stuff that a lot of the stuff nowadays I'm not as into as far as I like it. I like I like appreciating a good voice. I like hearing that. I don't like to hear the stuff that I don't really consider it country music. A lot of it. Not all of it, but there's a lot of it that's. I just feel like it's.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it don't compare to what I grew up on. The George Jones and Conway Twitties and and the people of that that era, and it's just totally different.
It really is.
I'm gonna shorten it down a little bit because he actually hit on a couple things. We call it little bits of controversy. So I'm gonna give you a little quick question. little answer here, so we're gonna just roll literally three or four questions here for you. So,
Okay.
in your era, in that time that you were in NASCAR, hey, look, we knew somebody had an edge. Somebody knew how to cheat better than the other one. Who's the best cheater that you knew during that time frame?
Best cheater. Probably Chad Canals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now before that, the Junior Johnson stuff was pretty good. I'll tell you right now. Even when I drove for Junior Johnson, they had stuff that, I mean, I'd probably blow your mind.
The links they would go to cheat, right?
Some of the stuff. Yeah, I mean, we had jack screws that we could, at that time, this was early '90s, that we could move, with a radio from the pits. What I mean by jack screw, that would adjust the weight on each wheel. We have 4 jack screws on a race car. That, goes on top of each coil spring, and you could have them radio controlled.
Wow.
Like you could adjust it
What?
while the car's out on a racetrack. I'm sure you guys have watched the race where they stick the long extension and run there, and then they get the ratchet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this thing here didn't. It was all radio controlled.
Don't tell me some good old boys can't get in.
That was so far
right.
advanced compared. That's stuff that you see nowadays. But it was stuff like that they had. It was just a lot of stuff that
It's very competitive, very, very competitive.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's so cool. We could probably do a whole show on that.
Yeah,
we're gonna have Hut back on one of our normal conspiracy
I would say
shows soon.
probably.
Yes, that's right.
I would say probably there's 2 of them probably the Junior Johnson. He had access to a lot of stuff, and but he was probably the old timer, and Chad Canals was the new timer.
The king and the prince.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, best peaches, Chilton County peaches or Georgia peaches?
Oh, by far Chilton County.
Oh, I agree with you too. I agree with you.
Man, I'll tell you right now.
Get you hungry, won't it? That's good stuff, right
That
there.
was quick.
I'm a green plum guy. I don't really care for peaches. I like peaches, but they go bad before I eat all of them. But
I get it.
But I like the green plums. I'm a green
You like
plum guy.
you like these satsumas we have down here? Me too.
Oh,
How lucky are we to have that around here? I mean, they just grow on trees around here.
Man.
There's a million of them on each tree.
Sure do.
All right. I'm talking in their prime. In your prime. The better driver. You or Davey Allison?
Me.
I didn't expect anything less.
No.
Davey Allison will tell you the same thing. Let me tell you something that happened when Davey got him and one of the crew members was in Rockingham, and I was, like I said, early '90s, and one of his crew members and him got in a play fight, whatever. And anyway, Davey got hit between the legs and went to the bathroom and blacked out while standing there peeing. And anyway,
somebody's mine.
Yeah, and anyway, NASCAR, he had to go to the hospital, get checked out. Anyway, come find out, didn't know it, but that happens when you do that. But anyway, NASCAR wouldn't let him start the race. I wouldn't let him race the next day for fear of
it was like concussion protocol almost type
black
thing.
now. Yeah. So anyway, Robert asked Davey, said, we got to get somebody to drive the car. Who we gonna get? And he said, Hut Stricklin. He said, well, are you sure? And Davey said, Hut Stricklin is a better race car driver than I am. And so Robert said, well, let's see if we can't get Hut. And so that was on a Saturday morning when that happened. Well, Saturday evening, Robert told me, he said, I want you to, stick around here and let's get in happy hour, drive his car during happy hour, because we had happy hour after what you call a bush race. And so I made about 3 or 4 laps in Robert's car in practice, and the most god-awfulest horsepower I ever felt in my life. And so I come in, I was spinning the wheels all the way down the straightaway, and I told Robert said, what do we need to do to the car to make it faster? I said, Robert, you got way too much horsepower. He said, way too much horsepower? I said, yeah. I said, it's got too much bottom end. I said, it's spinning the wheels all the way down the straightaway. He said, well, can't we change the spring or sway bar or something? And I said, no. I said, it's got so much horsepower, you're not going to be able to hook it up. He said, what if he said, the last time I had a driver tell me that was Darrell Walter back in the Digard days. And he said, he looked at his guys. He said, let's take it back to the garage over here. We're going to pull the engine out and go back to the shop. So they pulled it out that night and went back to the shop, spent all night detuning that engine and put it back in the car for the race morning. And anyway, Robert said, hope that thing runs. Said, I took like 50 foot-pounds of torque out of it. I said, that'll be about right. And so anyway, so go out there and they drop the green flag. Davey makes a slow lap and has to come down pit road. We do a driver change. I lost a lap in the driver change and come back out on the racetrack and dead last and went all the way from the rear all the way to the front and passed Kyle Petty, who had been dominating Rockingham for a lot of years. And passed Kyle Petty and got caught up on the lead lap. And caution come out after I passed Kyle and got on the lead lap and started at the back again, come back to the front and got the lead from Kyle again and drove down in 3 and broke a wrist pin going in turn 3 and the engine blew up.
Oh.
And but it was just one of the things. I mean, but it and from that moment on, Robert and I had a bond there that he was like, man, he was very impressive, and so every time any opportunity I ever come up, with Robert to, had of course Davy's deal, and then I tried to get out of my contract with RJ Reynolds because at that time I was doing the driving the Smoking Joe's car, and I couldn't get out of that, and Robert didn't want me to get out of that because that was messing with a serious sponsor with Winston cigarettes, and so anyway, then we, when something happened with Ernie, a lot of the same thing happened. When Ernie Irvin got hurt driving the 28 car, right. I was on top guy on his list to get that ride, and it just never worked out for different reasons and 2 or 3 opportunities, and but anyway, you asked a question who I felt was better.
Right.
You didn't hesitate,
and I didn't hesitate because I know. I just know I knew I'd raced against him a lot. But I'll tell you what, he was good, very good, very smart chassis wise. He had a lot of insight obviously from his dad, and his dad was probably one of the sharpest chassis men. And his Uncle Donnie, my dad-in-law, he taught me a lot about race cars and stuff too. And to have that pool to pull from for information was just priceless.
Right. Well, and that just goes said you wasn't scared of it. That right there, you could jump in on a Saturday, you're gonna go in a new car, you ain't ever drove it. I mean, you just wasn't ever scared of it, were you, Hut?
No. I could get in anybody's car, and that was one thing, what really helped me out getting a cup ride, my initial cup ride. I had a guy, I invited him down to Birmingham one weekend, and I said, love for you to come watch me race, and he come down there, and this was in a guy named Skip Janey, who actually gave me my first break in the Cup before the Heinz car, and him and his family come down there, picked him up at the airport, and we went out to Birmingham. I just happened that night, I was running 3 divisions, and 3 different cars that night, and ended up winning all 3 divisions that night, and and it was from a mini stock to a late model to a super late, and it was, 3 drastically different cars, and just I could adapt. It didn't take me long to adapt to anything really. It's just, once you're a true racer, and I feel like I was.
You grew up with a wrench in your hand, crawling in them cars. Your daddy, I mean, you didn't have a whole lot of choice, brother. Man, I'm glad it worked out.
That's right.
And man, I'm so glad we got to run into each other and be friends. And now I'm the outside sales guy at the Gulf Shores Builder Supply now. Not only am I the Not only am I
you've
the
been
bus
elevated.
driver or the truck driver,
Yep.
delivery guy, I'm still your favorite delivery guy, everybody on the Gulf Coast. Don't fret on that.
Absolutely.
But if y'all need anything, that's where Hut's at these days, because he sat at home for about, a week
Yep.
and a half and twiddled your thumbs and realized this wasn't going to cut it. Said he had to go
That's
do
right.
something. So
Yeah, I'm too
that's
high
right.
strung
You
for that.
got to keep going,
right.
buddy. Make hay while the sun's out. And we've had a good time becoming buddies.
right.
And thank you for coming
Yes,
on the
we have.
show. I hope to get you back on, and
Yes.
maybe during the NASCAR season
Sure.
when it's really hot and heavy and it gets to some crunch time, you can come on and give us some analysis on stuff.
I've got one question for you, Hud. If you could
All right.
go back in time, would you wreck Jeff Gordon at that race at Darlington and win that one? Because you should have won that race.
Probably would.
Probably would.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Probably would.
Perfect.
Channeled your
Yep.
some inner Dale there, huh? Just get after it.
Yep, that's right. Do what you got to do. That's what these guys do now, man.
That's
They don't. You can tell the cars now that are a lot safer than they ever were.
Yeah.
These guys now, man, they do what they got to do to win a race.
They do.
And, it don't matter. Of course, they're sitting in a car that it still got to hurt when you hit something, even though you're surrounded by all that BSI foam that goes in them cars. But it's tough thing.
Man, what a conversation. Huge thanks to Hut Stricklin for joining us and sharing some of the best behind-the-scenes stories from his NASCAR career. From his early days racing on a budget to calling out some of the biggest names in the sport, this was an absolute blast. If you missed part one, or if you want to watch the full uncut interview, you can find it right now on tigsbits.com and also on our YouTube page at Tigsbits Podcast. Go check it out. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more epic interviews like this. And of course, we'll be back next week with another great episode. See y'all.